Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 126 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxon here with you, and I am joined, of course, by my co hosts, my brother Aaron.
What's up?
And the one, the only, Mr. Archie Mitchell. Archie back with us this week, was not able to be with us last week.
The last couple of weeks have been so hectic, I don't know whether I'm coming or going anymore.
Well, you were just telling us a story earlier about today, and I wanted to get this on recording because I think that you and I may have encountered
The same criminal?
an interstate criminal. Yes.
Jesus. He's going from Ohio to Jersey. I went out this morning, went to work, and then about 12:30, 1 o'clock, I had some free time, so I went to go run my errands, such as banking, and go to the post office to drop off some packages for some customs that I sold. And as I walked back to my car from the bank, I got a shot of my front bumper, and my front license plate was missing. And Nate, Aaron, I swear it was clean as could be. There was nothing there. There was no screws. There was no holder. There was nothing. It's like somebody got there with tools, took it off, and walked away. I don't know if it happened at my job. I don't know if it happened before I left the house last night. When
you can't pinpoint it. You can't pinpoint it because you don't look at that all the time.
Right. Who looks at their front license plate every day?
Not front, but I shit you not, 2 weeks ago, I came out of work, and I don't know what made me. I don't even know. Maybe it was one of those times where I wanted to, like, where you want to kick the slush off your tire or whatever, off your wheel well. Maybe it was that or something, but something made me go around to the back of my car. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, my back license plate gone as fuck. And like you said, no evidence, no footprints in the snow. Like, when did this happen?
When did this take place?
I think there's an interstate license plate thief.
I went to the DMV. They were able to give me new plates, thank God, within an hour. Okay, no big deal. Mm-hmm. And then I had to go to the police station, and the police station looked at me like I was an idiot.
Oh, yeah, they did the same to me. I called the cops and said, do I need to report this? And she's like, no, you don't need to report it. What are you calling for?
Right.
I don't know, because if somebody's got my plates and they get pulled over or whatever.
That's what I said. I literally had to look at this guy, and I'm like, well, sir, if the guy goes and puts the plate on my car, from my car on his, and commits a robbery or murders somebody, I'm liable.
Right.
He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, well, tell me how. Now I feel like an idiot when he finally tells me how. Well, you got new plates, so it's off your name. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
But you're right. You're right to be paranoid.
Right.
But yeah, there's a guy right now out there with a really, really well-decorated garage.
Yep. New Jersey, Ohio, Vegas. He's got them all.
He's going for Michigan next week. Watch out, folks. Right. Watch out, listeners in Michigan. Well, on this week's show, we are going to be discussing.
I was going to. Can we do some plugs?
Sure.
Quick. I know Archie has his World Customs, and Nate has the Motley Soup. I have this business I'm trying to get off the ground, and it's used license plates. I'm trying to collect them from all 50 states. I'm up to 2.
It's plates.
I'm up to 2.
Plates from all the states. That's what it's
called. I like that.
I'm up to 2 right now.
But Aaron, are you buying or are you selling? I don't get it.
Both.
I'll trade. I'll buy.
I'll trade.
Either way, he profits.
Right.
That's right.
Oh, that was good.
We set it up. He knocked it down. That's how.
Definitely.
On this week's show, we are going to be discussing some what-if scenarios. I don't know how many my co-hosts have brought. I brought 3 this time around.
6.
I have 6 or 7, but only in case we end up having the same, or it's possible it's one we've done already.
Yes.
So,
which is a possibility. To start the show, we are actually going to do another match review from one of our listeners. This match was suggested by listener Tom Mallison. Tom, thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Mallison. It was his birthday a couple days ago, so happy birthday, Tom.
Happy belated birthday, Tom. And the match is from January 30th, 1991. It is Clash of the Champions 14. Terry Taylor against Rock and Roll Express member Ricky Morton. And this is kind of the beginning of the York Foundation storyline.
Yep. And I'm going to be honest with you, Nate. I don't mean to cut you off. When I first heard the match, I was like, okay, I guess this is going to be okay. But I mean, how great could it be? And then when I saw Taylor walk out the way that he did for the match, it hit me. Oh, yeah, this is when he started going by Terrence Taylor. And then Ricky joined him a little while later as Richard Morton, and Tommy Rich came in as Thomas Rich. I'm like, okay, I can get into this. This is the beginning of a good storyline.
And the thing that I found the most, and we'll get to it, but this match actually for I guess you would say it wasn't a main event match,
Mid-card, mid-card match.
But for a mid-card match, this match has a real, and it's nuanced. It's a very nuanced match. It's a uniquely booked kind of thing, and I'll get to why. We will get to why in just a little bit. But overall, you guys like the match?
I did, because I have to be honest. Ricky was trying to use his speed because, of course, Rock and Roll Express do drop kicks and run around and head scissors. And Terry Taylor was coming off like a stud. He was literally letting Ricky bounce off of him and taking him out and using his strength to keep Ricky down at all cost in the match.
Yeah.
Which you didn't see from Terry Taylor a lot.
Aaron, what did you think?
I thought it was a decent television match, and watching it, like, it's not so much the match. It's like when I watched the old Clash of the Champions, I know we all talk about childhood and everything like that. Like, Nate and I were raised in a home that, like, both our parents were active parents or whatever, but we were raised by our mother, and our mother was a single income home. So guess what, kids? You're not dropping $40 for a pay-per-view.
Right.
So when Clash of the Champions came on, it was like fucking A. It was like a little, it was like, this is a fucking day. We're going to sit here. We're going to watch 2 hours of great wrestling. It just brought me back to Clash of the Champions. But this match was interesting because Terry starts it as a face.
Yes.
Like, he shakes hands with him and everything like that. And then when Nate, I think you were probably going to talk about it, like when Terry Runnels comes on and says that Terrence Taylor is the newest acquisition of the York Foundation, and she comes out with the computer, then he starts working.
He heals it up.
That's actually kind of cool.
He heals it up.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He literally turns heel during the match.
Right.
And it was really cool. And it was, I guess, I didn't even remember. I mean, I've probably watched this Clash a few times, and maybe even when I was watching it, I wasn't really paying attention to the match. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't focused on it. One thing that I wanted to write down, or that I wanted to bring up that I wrote down, the match started off technical, good exchanges. Is there up there in the top 10 wrestling maneuvers of all time? A Ricky Morton rolling arm drag is a thing of beauty.
Oh, I agree.
He did a couple of those in this match. I always love to see those. There was a nice build up to a high cross body spot, and then you can watch Terry Taylor, and this is where I think sometimes he doesn't get credit for as good a worker as he is. You can watch Terry Taylor as this match goes, and that's why I said it's very nuanced. You watch him change a little bit through every move,
facial expressions, the moves,
he gets a little more aggressive through every time he gets put to the mat, he's a little more angry. He's a little more heelish.
Yeah, and that's in my notes, is that Terry Taylor is like super underrated. And
always has been.
There's a lot of times where I'm like, where people are like, oh, they gave him this gimmick and it was terrible or whatever. Terry Taylor actually got hurt by the Rooster gimmick.
Yeah.
Like,
but
that
he was
hurt
pulling
that
it
guy's
off,
career.
actually, though.
He was
pulling it off slightly.
But the Rooster gimmick hurt him.
No, it did, of course. Of course.
Yeah, it hurt his credibility. I guess I don't know.
Well, to go from the NWA television champion or the Florida television champion on NWA television to a guy with red dye in his hair clucking, you know what I mean? And Bobby
Yeah.
Heenan's telling him, "You're a nobody, and I found a better nobody than you. Here's the Brooklyn Brawler." He's like,
Watch.
"Wow,
Go back sometime and watch Terry as a babyface in Mid South.
yeah,
And you can see the greatness there. He had the potential to be, and I agree with Aaron. Like it's one of the few times where saddling somebody with a gimmick kind of brought down their career in a way.
yep,
Now the other thing I have written down here is they do the okay. Alexander York comes out and she's standing at ringside. And at that point, you still don't really know what's going on. Like,
right,
it could be Ricky, it could be Terry, it could be somebody else coming out from the back.
right,
And then they do the old school screen up in the corner
yep."
with the promo. She cuts the promo, and that's the point in the match where Terry goes full heel.
He turns it on, almost like the ref tapped him on the shoulder and said, "By the way, you're a heel now."
Yeah,
You know what
fantastic.
I mean? And here's the thing of it. Terry Taylor was great in this role. I think that maybe adding Ricky and Tommy Rich to the group kind of hurt Terry a little bit because the group was now filled with these three guys that had nothing really going for them at the time. Where if it would have just stayed as Terry and maybe added like a Mr. Hughes or a Heavy, some big guy to be Terry's, the brawn, it might have went better for him. But it still worked out for him though.
I agree, and something I was going to point out, and it was before Alexander York came on the screen. Something that popped me was Dusty. Dusty was talking about he's like, these guys were on the danger zone, and Paulie was trying to start stuff with him, and Terry was like, "You got a problem with me, Ricky?" And Ricky was like, "I ain't no problem with you. I ain't got no problem with you, Terry. Oh man, I love you, man. I love you too, buddy. I ain't got no problem with you. Let's just have a good like listening to Dusty
Right.
explain everything that was leading to this match. Fucking cracked me up.
So that's
And-
funny that you go ahead.
Sorry. No,
I was just going to say it was funny that you mentioned that because, as I've said on the show before, Kendall doesn't watch wrestling, but Kendall has to sit through a lot of wrestling because I have it on while she's on her phone or whatever. I'm watching a show to review for this show or what have you. But anyway, she and this is a testament to the man. She gets a super, super kick out of Dusty. Like while I was watching this match, there were a few times where he said something and then she would do the Dusty lisp and say what he said. And she knows, she'll be like, oh, coup de grace.
He got a bicycle.
He got a bicycle.
He got a bicycle.
Just because I own a big car now don't make me bad, Jack.
Bad, Jack. Come up out the ditch looking so sweet.
So sweet. God damn it. God rest your soul, Dusty.
See, that was the great thing about Dusty though. Even when he was on commentary, it was like he was actually just cutting a promo. He wasn't actually telling you anything about the match.
Oh
he
no.
was almost cutting his regular promo. You know?
There's a match. There's a match between I think it's Ultimo Dragon and Dean Malenko.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing the Dragon Screw Leg Whip, and Dusty loves the name. Like Mike Tenay says it. He's like, "Oh my God, Dragon Screw Leg Whip!" And Bobby Heenan goes, "You know what? Go ahead, Aaron. Tell the line."
What happens in the match is Tenay goes, "Dragon Screw Leg Whip," and they're like, "What?" He goes, "That was a Dragon Screw Leg Whip." And then Bobby's like, "You know what I like with my hamburger? A little side of leg whip."
And Dusty's just like,
and then every move afterwards, every move, Dusty's like, "Is that Dragon Screw Leg Whip?" Dragon Screw Leg Whip. And today's just like, no.
No.
But
Bobby
it's
and
fantastic.
Dusty, Bobby and Dusty on the same commentating team
was always gold.
Yeah, thing of
Was
beauty.
always gold.
And you know what was great about Bobby and Dusty too on commentary? They didn't, like Monsoon and Bobby would like bicker with each other or whatever.
Yeah.
like Monsoon or Bobby and Dusty never played it like they hated each other.
No.
Like they were buddies. And,
Dusty would mark out for Bobby. He'd laugh.
and Bobby would mark out for Dusty. They just had a good time, man. It was just two old dudes.
I
We're
know
here
I always
collecting
bring
it.
it up.
We're here collecting a check. Let's just have some fucking fun.
I know I always bring it up, but when Hogan turned at Bash at the Beach, and Bobby goes, "But is he the third man? Who's he with?" Dusty goes, "What are you talking about?" And it's like Dusty's mad. Like,
Bobby.
why would you even bring that up? This is Hulk Hogan. And then when Hogan turns, Bobby's like, "I told you," and you could tell that he was probably pointing Dusty in the face, going, "See, I knew what I was talking about."
Fantastic stuff. We got off the track with the match.
It wouldn't be us if we didn't, though.
Exactly.
The finish was a little weak.
Yeah, that's
match.
actually in my notes. This match built good and everything about it up until the finish was great, but the finish was just kind of rotten.
It looked like Ricky broke his neck because of how badly he came down off the ropes. You know what I mean?
think Terry wasn't in the right place.
Right.
Because Ricky kind of landed on him.
Right.
For those of you that haven't watched the match, Ricky tries to do a drop kick on Terry. Terry ducks it. Ricky hits the ropes.
Falls back and lands on Terry's back.
But he lands on Terry. I think
Like he should have almost pinned a Terry with how hard he landed on him.
Right.
I think Terry was a little off from where he was supposed to be on the mat. Terry rolls Ricky up for the pin.
And the announcers actually mentioned it too. They're like, that was he might have hit Terry, but he didn't come down on him strong enough. Like, that looked pretty strong. Wait a minute, he could have killed him there.
Mm-hmm. I definitely give this match 3.5 out of 5.
That's exactly what I gave it. 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it
Same
3.
thing. Good middle ground match for where it was. It was like the second or third match I think on the show. Mm-hmm. It was where it needed to be, and it worked.
And it probably I probably would have given it a 2.5 or a 3. Aaron had not the cool little mid-match heel turn happen. I think that added to it.
And the York Foundation thing could have been neat, but they gave up on it too quick. And then all of a sudden they did it for a minute, and then all of a sudden the guys just started losing. So it's like, I guess the computer fucking sucks. Like,
yeah.
But maybe you should get a Mac or something. It's York. It's whatever you're using right now is not working.
Dude, you're getting a Dell.
That was
no. The computer spits out, dude, you're getting an L. As in loss.
That works.
That's WCW in this era, though. They changed bookers like they changed underwear. And that's what happens, you know. There was a lot of inconsistencies in WCW back then because of that fact. They changed bookers so much, they changed bosses so much. Nothing stayed consistent, you know.
And whoever they were trying to fill in as the booker was always somebody from the roster. I mean, look, I love Ric Flair, but I mean, he became head booker for a while, and it was just like, okay, who are we booking you to? Who are you booking yourself to beat this time?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when he got off of the booking committee and they put Dusty in control, Dusty was great, but he was booking a lot of non-finishes, and he didn't want anyone to look weak. So they just never caught the right gear when they were shifting until, and I hate to give the devil his due, until they got Bischoff in there, because Bischoff knew how to control everything and take enough ideas from who and where and put it together.
Yep. He maintained consistency.
Right.
For at least 3 years.
Right. So, at least 3.
Whether all those decisions were correct or not, no. But at least, again, there was consistency. Anything else on this before we go into some what ifs, gentlemen?
Nope. The only thing else that mid match split screen that needs to come back, because I used to enjoy it as a kid, seeing okay, the Bulldogs are fighting some enhancement talent. And there's Brett and Anvil in the corner going, and we're going to take the Bulldogs down. And you know, I want storyline progression on television. I don't want to have to watch Twitter or YouTube to find out who's fighting who. You know, because you didn't want to put it on the main show.
And if you remember, I think it was it was probably a decade ago now. 2010-ish. They were doing that on SmackDown. They had brought it back on SmackDown. I distinctly remember that. I distinctly remember. I don't know why, but I
Right.
distinctly remember Mike Knox cutting a promo.
Yep. It was on Punk, I think. He was probably talking
Yeah.
about CM Punk and
Yeah.
Kelly, and every now and then we do get treated to one out of the clear blue sky on a Raw or a SmackDown or an NXT, but they don't do it. And I'm not saying it should be every match. I'm not saying it should be every show, but just a little bit to give us something mid-match.
You know what I miss,
What's that?
and I wish they'd bring it back, and I think it could help the shows. And they'd have to do it when the audience comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of everybody standing awkwardly looking at a TV screen like you would
Right.
never look at a TV, no one ever looks at a TV screen like WWE
Sideways.
wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at it sideways?
But anyway, instead of that, why can't we bring back the old in the arena interviews like Gene Okerlund used to do
Right.
with the audience behind
Right.
them?
You have a stage set up near the stage for that reason.
Right. I mean,
You
I
know?
think that, do your promos there instead of in that sanitary, awkward TV. God damn it. Their show is so awkward. Anyway.
Did you watch NXT this week? Not to get off topic. Did you watch NXT yet? Either
I
one
have
of you?
not. I'm going to watch it tomorrow, actually.
Watch the Cameron Grimes parts. He's got this new thing where he invested in GameStop and AMC
I
and
saw that
made
start
millions.
last week.
And he's now calling himself the $1 Million Man and trying to do things like Ted DiBiase did, like have somebody dribble a basketball and if they could do it 10 times or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, him being an idiot, he's not doing it right. But his whole shtick during it is hysterical.
I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna watch NXT and AEW tomorrow because, well, Sunday nights, ladies and gentlemen, inside the We Can't Wrestle Facebook group, you got to watch That's Not Wrestling. But anyways,
I'm gonna do the rest of the show like this.
Nobody can see. Nobody can see you. This is an audio show. Aaron is looking to his left.
Sideways. Aaron is sideways.
Being awkward. So, that being said, let's start off with, we won't take our first break just yet. We'll start off, we'll do some what ifs here in the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Sorry, Kyle's not with us. This is actually one of his ideas that he came up with originally for the show back in the old days when go back and listen. No, please don't go listen to the first 20 episodes when we all I was so bad at audio back then. We all sounded like we were calling from a phone in 1982. But anyway, they're still funny. They're still funny, but they sound like shit. We got some what if scenarios for you here today. And we are going to let Aaron start with his first what if scenario.
Oh,
go ahead, Mr. Maxon.
I have two of them that kind of roll into each other. So I'll do my first one, and it is, what if the Iron Sheik would have taken Vern Gagne's money?
And broke that jabroni Hulk Hogan's leg in Madison Square Garden.
Well, there'd be no Hulkamania, that's for sure. Or it would have took another year and a half to start.
Okay. First of all, I guess the benefit of that from a time frame standpoint and a broadcast standpoint is, other than the MSG network, until they put the match pre-recorded on one of their syndicated shows, nobody but the MSG people would have seen it.
Right.
So, but like Archie said, or was kind of alluding to, if Hogan would have got his leg broken, you'd have had to wait longer to start Hulkamania.
Right.
Also,
he wouldn't have won the title. He wouldn't have been around. He wouldn't have been the face of the company.
Also, would they have fired Sheik's ass, considering, do you fire your champion in 1984?
Oh, they definitely would have fired him, but he would have taken the belt with him.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like the WWF title would have been on AWA television. Right. And Vern Gagne could have went out there and said, look, they're not going to show it to you yet, but this guy, the Iron Sheik, broke the leg of the guy that was our biggest star for like a year and a half, 2 years, and now he's here and he's the champion of the. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It would have hurt business indefinitely.
Do
And
you
it would have
think?
forced Vince's hand to say something about it.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's interesting because you. How do I want to say this? The essentially what this situation finally did was it's finally the situation that made Vern Gagne willing. You know what I mean? Like Vince McMahon made Vern Gagne so mad. Vern Gagne was finally willing to piss away the territory system and say fuck
Right.
it and not do things traditionally and not do things by the rules. And yeah, I mean it's a wacky scenario though. Like, what do you
I
think,
like it
Aaron?
though.
What
I
if?
like it.
I think that the
Do you think
WWF.
Vern would have went to that extreme? Do you think he would have had the Sheik with their title on his TV?
Yeah, I really do. And I think he would have sold it that way. He would have sold it as Hulk Hogan left, went to another company, got his ass handed to him, and now the Sheik's back with the belt. And then he would have probably had his champion fight the Iron Sheik. I probably, I would probably say it was probably Bockwinkel that was the champ. I'm not sure who was the champ right when Hogan won it.
Could have been
Because
Martel.
maybe Martel, and he probably would have had his champ beat the Iron Sheik, and Iron Sheik wouldn't have cared because he got a fucking payoff,
Right.
and then been like, oh, this dude's the undisputed champion. Like
The
Rick Martel is now the undisputed champion, or Nick Bockwinkel is now the undisputed champion
And the WWF
because he beat the champ of the WWE.
The
And Hulk Hogan,
WWF could have spun it too, and said that the Iron Sheik was afraid he was going to lose the title to this Hulk Hogan, and afraid of the competition in the WWF. So he resorted to dirty tactics, and used dirty tactics to break Hulk Hogan's
Dirty
leg
money.
and
Took
ran
dirty
away.
money from Vern Gagne.
And
He was afraid of the territories going away.
Yeah, I mean they could have spun it too, and that's the beauty of kayfabe, man.
Yep.
That's the beauty of that era because you know what? The people in Minneapolis would have been like, "Yeah, fuck the WWF," and the people in New York would have been like, "Yeah, fuck the AWA," and that's what you would have had. And
So essentially it would have been a pardon me for sounding a little racist, but it would have been the white version of Biggie versus Tupac.
yeah, you got
East Coast versus West Coast.
East Coast and Minneapolis.
Midwest, yeah.
But that's a cool scenario. I like that. Aaron.
I like it too.
Archie.
I do too. That's why I wrote it down.
Let's see. All right, I'll go in the same direction Aaron went, only a little different. It still kind of revolves around Hogan, though.
Mm-hmm.
What if WrestleMania 1 flopped?
I think if WrestleMania 1 flops, well, I know for a fact if WrestleMania 1 flopped, I say I know for a fact, and then I say I think, but I'm pretty sure that AWA probably, and you guys are going to go, what? Probably would have become the national promotion. As much as Vern Gagne tried to act like he was Mr. Territory and he wanted to respect the boundaries and all that stuff, he was also making moves. ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. He was making moves too. Let's not bullshit the bullshitter here.
Right.
But well, obviously, if WrestleMania wouldn't have made it, then Vince would have had to sell his shares back to Monsoon and whoever else held shares in the WWF before. And I think you still eventually get to some kind of a nationalization for one, two, or three promotions. But I honestly see Gagne taking the advantage then because
I think it would have been Crockett.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah, Crockett had the better. I shouldn't say better. Crockett had the more. Crockett had the bigger balls than Vern Gagne, and Crockett had Turner behind him eventually, and Crockett had
I guess I see what you're saying.
Dusty had the bigger, grandiose. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do Starcade. Okay,
Right, but
I'll
would
say
that
this
have halted anybody?
Starcade was WrestleMania before WrestleMania. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they didn't have the money behind it, if that makes sense.
No,
And,
I agree.
and I think Crockett had the bigger balls than Vern Gagne to go out there and just be like, you know what? If we fail, we fail. But if we fucking make it, it's gonna be fucking money. If that makes sense.
That's a good point too. That's a good point too.
And like I said, he had Dusty, and Dusty, in a lot of ways, is similar to Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, yes.
You know, like grand ideas, maybe not the best like booker in the world, but can give you a show and a match. There's been plenty of people that said Vince McMahon can come up with an idea for a show and write all the matches and be like, this will be grandiose if we do this, and then put it out there and have people around him that have like great ideas to get you there, if that makes sense.
Fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the NWA would have taken off bigger and probably still done. They still would have done pay-per-view eventually, and
But would that have scared anybody away from doing anything too big with closed circuit TV and pay per view? Because if this flopped, what are we going to put on that won't?
See, I don't think it would have, because Crockett was still doing it even before Vince.
But not as big as Vince did. You know, WrestleMania was meant to be seen in every household, and everybody got a chance to watch it, and for the first time ever. And so my feeling is it might have scared a couple of promoters, whether it be Vern Gagne or Jim Crockett, away from wanting to deal with pay-per-view for maybe a year or two longer until they perfected it or got it to a little bit better of an area that they could do better on. And then, when you would have saw companies get bigger.
That's what I was going to say. Ultimately, 2 points I want to make. Firstly, if WrestleMania fails, it is it is not the death of the WWF.
Oh, Vince would have brought back.
For 2 reasons. Well, Vince wouldn't have had any stake in it anymore, because if it was a failure, he had to, if he didn't make his money back in X amount of time, he had to sell back. But anyway, and he was broke. But if he sells it back to the original stakeholders, et cetera, the WWF doesn't go anywhere, because, Archie lives in the New York, New Jersey area. It's the most populous area in the country.
Yep.
And it's where all the media is.
Right.
A promotion, the biggest promotion based in New York City, is not going anywhere. It may not be the biggest promotion in the world, but it's going to survive.
Right.
Now, the other thing is, eventually, whether Crockett, whether the AWA, whether somebody else in charge of the WWF would have made the move, things would still be today what they are.
Okay.
Because no matter what was going on with the wrestling business, the entertainment business, cable TV, etc., cable TV and the way things are entertainment-wise would have killed territory wrestling, period.
Anyway,
whether Vince did it or not. You couldn't do territory wrestling now.
No.
With the internet, and you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't have
companies are trying it. Companies are trying it nowadays.
It
can't work. It won't work.
Yeah, you couldn't have Bob Armstrong go to one territory and say he broke his leg and then go to the next territory 2 weeks later and he was fine. Nope. It worked back when there wasn't internet and there wasn't, you know what I mean? Because people in Alabama didn't see TV in Cincinnati or whatever. So the territories would have died anyway.
It just happened recently with the NWA. James Storm on their show got beat down. The next night he's on TNA or Impact. And people are asking, well, how is that? And his only reasoning of how that happened is, oh, we tape NWA 3 months ahead of schedule. Well, yeah, but we don't know that.
Yeah. So,
you know,
ultimately, I still think we wind up where we are today. Just somebody else is the Jefe. You know what I mean? That's the way it is. You think I'm right, Aaron?
Yeah.
I mean, territories would have died anyway, right?
Within a few.
Oh yeah, territories would have died. I don't. The only clip I saw was you saying that Gagne would have been the Jefe. I think it would have been the Crockett.
I think Gagne would have tried to grab the reins and do whatever he could, but slowly but surely, Crockett would have said, "No, this is mine," and pulled. And then, if territories were dying, then the AWA was one of the first ones to go, and either get absorbed by NWA or
right,
move forward on their own.
Fair enough.
All right, Nate, yours. Go ahead.
Yes, I will do one, and then we will take a break and come back with some more.
Sounds good.
The one that I have it's one that I have especially recently thought about because I've gotten a lot more cheap plug reliving the extreme. Aaron and I and Chad Austin from ECW doing the show where we're reviewing ECW week to week. And it's really, really fun for me because back in the day, I liked ECW, but ECW was probably the least on my radar.
Right.
And it's fun for me to go back and watch it and to read articles about it and and things like that, just because I'm diving into it more than I did back then. But anyway, and this brings me to my what if. What if, just say, in 1995, when Shane Douglas came to the WWF, somebody would have convinced Vince McMahon, hey, you should let Shane use this persona he's using in ECW. Do you think that had Shane Douglas been allowed to perform as the franchise in the WWF, he would have been more successful and survived longer? And I have some caveats to that. If Vince McMahon sees that this man has this much heel heat and is this good, does he kind of shirk the click with their, we don't like Shane Douglas, he's a pain in the ass, blah blah blah? Because Vince McMahon, at the end of the day, really his biggest focus is money.
Right.
So that's my question, guys. Do you think that if Shane Douglas would have made it, and of course he wouldn't have been able to use the profanity, but if he would have been able to use that gimmick, that aura,
the Attitude Era wasn't that far behind, so the profanity wouldn't have been that far off from him using
it's a couple of years. It's a couple of
years, so he could have exploded when the Attitude Era happened.
I mean, but in reality, Shane Douglas, okay, so he comes in August of 95. In October of 95, here's Gold Dust.
Right.
So I guess you're right. I mean, they're not that far off from letting.
By 96, he could explode and start dropping an F-bomb, but they'll just bleep it out. You know what I mean? I'm happy you entered the extra little excerpt of, for Vince to debunk the click, because my answer was based on that. If he never became friends with Shawn and Razor and Diesel, they were going to screw him over anyway. That's just the way they were. I've seen countless shoot interviews by Kevin Nash and Scott Hall themselves who have said, yeah, we just didn't like Shane, so we didn't want him there. You know what I mean? And that's them admitting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think Shane Douglas would have reached world heavyweight title status. No, in the WWF. Why? Because he was not as big as some of the bigger stars, size-wise. And the franchise gimmick would have been great in the WWF, but I don't think a watered-down franchise would have been okay. Because we kind of got that in WCW when he finally went back there during the whole, 99 and 2000 era.
We discussed that. I said that was one of the worst jumps last week.
Yeah, and he was full franchise there, and he got his matches with Ric Flair, and he got his matches with guys who he felt held him down, and it still didn't get him as over as he should have been. You know what I mean? The company's failing anyway. Why not put the title on Shane?
Right.
You know, so I just think that in a WWF driven world, no matter what the case would have been, Shane would have done okay, floundered, and then still kind of ended up back in ECW. Only it would have been a little bit longer before he returned.
Okay. Aaron, what do you think?
What I would say is, if he would have been allowed to be that franchise-esque character and not been saddled with the Dean Douglas character, and you guys might be like, oh, this is stupid or whatever, or it might be, you might say, oh, that's kind of a weird standpoint of it. If Shane Douglas would have been allowed to be Shane Douglas in 1995, Jeff Jarrett wouldn't be Jeff Jarrett.
Good point.
No, I see what you're saying.
I think Shane Douglas is a better worker and a better performer than, and I like Jeff Jarrett, but he's a better performer than him. That Double J character would have been replaced by Shane Douglas, and I think that's where he would have been on that in that roster. I think he would have been the Jeff Jarrett. Yeah, I think he would have been the Jeff Jarrett of that company.
Right, 6-month title reign with the Intercontinental title lasted pretty long in the. He might even have won a King of the Ring. You know what I mean? But it wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah, like Mabel probably would have been King of the Ring. Probably would have been Shane Douglas. Right. And I think Jeff Jarrett does that. Okay, so that's not too.
So what you're saying is he could have been top of the mid card, but probably never a bottom of the main event.
Well, yeah. I agree with Aaron. He might have gotten a match with Bret Hart or Shawn for the world title, but he never would have won it.
Like Shane Douglas is the Intercontinental Champion, but he's not main event in SummerSlam. He's not main event in WrestleMania, but he might be fighting Diesel for a title match in your house.
Right. I mean, you look at the stacked card, the stacked roster they had back then, Nate. Granted, it didn't seem like it was pulling in that many greater ratings, but for the world title, you had Bret, Shawn, The Undertaker, Vader, Sid Justice, Diesel, and every now and then they would throw in a Jeff Jarrett or a Mabel or a British Bulldog. Mm-hmm. So those guys weren't beating the champions. You know, Owen Hart had like 4 title matches against Shawn and Diesel. He never won it.
But they were the placeholder. Like, okay, we're gonna do a couple in your houses in here, so let's get a couple good matches out of Shane.
Right.
Working with Diesel, you know.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I think we all agree that he would have been much better off had he not been a substitute teacher.
That made no sense for me. We all knew who Shane Douglas was. We all knew. Forget about ECW. We all watched him with Johnny Ace. We all watched him with Ricky Steamboat as the World Tag Team Champions. We all watched him in WWF when he came out with the curly blonde hair. Who the hell thought 4 years later, after the 92 Royal Rumble, when he was there with the curly blonde hair, oh, Shane Douglas went and got his teaching degree, and now he's you know what I mean?
Well, the gimmick was just boring. It
really was, but I mean, it was unbelievable too. We know who he is.
All right,
Buddy Randell killed it.
Buddy Rondell. There is a Buddy Rondell edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Go back and look it up. That being said, gentlemen, we are going to take a break. We will be right back with more what ifs here on this edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast.